Hello and welcome to our webinar, The Silverchair Universe presents UNSILO. My name is Wes Royer, Director of Product at Silverchair. We're excited to have you with us today and learn about UNSILO. We have with us Neil Blair Christensen from UNSILO, who will be taking us through their product. Before we get started, a few notes. Attendees have been muted, so if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please type them into the chat box and we can address those at the end of the presentation. This webinar is being recorded and a link of the recording will be sent to you after the talk. And finally, when the webinar has concluded, you will get a brief survey. We appreciate if you could take a minute just to complete that to help us improve Universe offerings as well as the webinar series in the future. Now I'm going to hand it over to Neil to go ahead and do his presentation. And Neil, I'm gonna transfer it over to you.
Okay, hey, thank you, Wes. Let's see. Show my screen, and you should be, do you see this slide, this opening slide? Let me move this aside. Okay, let me move this aside. Okay, well, yeah, Wes, Silverchair, thank you for inviting me on UNSILO today, and thank you everyone for joining this call. I'll give you a quick intro to UNSILO, show you some examples of our work, give you some ideas of sort of some of the underlying approach to this type of technology and the solutions that we provide, and show you a brief demo of one of the tools to give you some sort of good insight into how some of these things work in practice, and then sort of finish it up with some examples of some areas that we are probably going to look at next for this stuff. Oh, here we go. So just a few words on UNSILO. Founded in 2012, our two co-founders, one came from Siri, that was acquired by Apple, where he was head of product design, and the other one was working in business development with a biomimetic startup, and they met and decided to get into this area of text intelligence. We specialize in text analytics, NLP, machine learning, and we work with a number of publishers and information providers. And in the examples that we go through, I'll show you some of those deployments. We're in the US, in the UK, and in Denmark. The majority of our team is based in Denmark, around 30 there. And the majority of those folks are sort of developers, NLP people, machine learning people. During this webinar, and I'm sure if you're here, you're probably already thinking about this, but it's just a reminder, try and, as I'm talking away, try and think about the examples and ask yourself where text intelligence may augment and improve performance and services. We're very much a solutions provider. So we're always very interested in learning about use cases, business cases, unique as they may be, to see if we can help address those. So if you're sitting here in this webinar and you're thinking, I have this idea, or this actually prompted this thing I hadn't thought about before, please don't be shy. Maybe we can address it in the questions at the end, or you can always reach out to me or my colleagues or Silverchair after this webinar. To set some context, you may have seen this. I mean, are you ever surprised by how advances normalize so quickly that you only really realize the change when you look back? And I think with this type of technology that UNSILO provides, I think we'll see something similar, right? We're here today on this date in 2018, and many of the things that we see, you know, we feel, this looks fairly predictable, and I think I know the boundaries of this. And then at some point in the future, and maybe not that long from now, we're going to look back and we'll see, we actually are able to do much more now than I thought we were able to do in the past. Just bear in mind, of course, that this type of progression, it typically doesn't look, you know, like this. There are ups and downs, sort of similar to the Gardner sort of hype cycle, right? Where you know, there's Amara's law that says we tend to overestimate the effect of technology in the short run, and we tend to underestimate the effect in the long run. And I think you'll see something similar here. I mean, personally, right, I remember when cell phones came out, and I swore I'd never get a cell phone. Why would I ever want one of those? I mean, it looked ridiculous. Didn't take long, I got one. Then I noticed that people were talking in public on their phones, and I was like, well, why would I ever want to do that? I'd never talk on public in the phone. And if someone called me, right, then I'd find a quiet corner. Then people, and it didn't take long before I was talking in public on my phone. Then people started texting. And every time someone sent me a text, I simply called them back because I refused to text. Didn't take long before I was texting as well. And then people started browsing web pages. Same thing happened, and didn't take long before I was browsing web pages. So things tend to normalize. And what I find is that there seems to be an acceleration of normalization. I think we'll see something similar in our case. And so what is this thing, text intelligence? Well, some may call it AI. I'm not too concerned about what we call it. I'm a bit more concerned about what we do with it, what the actual utility is, right? But different people, different use and business cases, different companies, organizations will have different definitions of what AI is, and it has many different subsets, natural language processing, machine learning, deep learning, automation, and so on. But speaking very plainly, for me, I think of this as computer systems that basically just help with tasks that would have normally required some sort of human intelligence. That's what we're dealing with. And then lately, there's an increased, as this evolves, right? There's an increased push for providing systems that are somewhat explainable. Why am I seeing this? And I'll show you an example of how we built like some human interaction into the manipulation of our software. Broadly speaking, you could divide what we do into two products or two types of products and services. There is Classify, which I'll show a brief demo of, which is a software as a service tool that allows you to sort of mix human and machine curation skills to build topic collections for topic pages or for subscription collections or even for custom packages of content that you want to sell. There's also an API suite. We have a few standard APIs, but we also have the ability to do quite a lot of customization around those APIs. And the things that they typically do are about extracting concepts. I'll show you what that means later from text, finding relatedness between documents and people and locations, identifying appropriate reviewers, trending concepts, how is my corpus moving, how is my journal moving, what are the trending things, and helping with semantic search. And then it says unlimited customization. Of course, there are limits to everything, but it's just to say that if there is a standard API and you want something slightly different, then please don't be shy, because chances are that we can build a custom solution that addresses your needs. So this is a view of new ideas, new use cases for our technology that sort of surface on an ongoing basis. It's a visual of an ecosystem of things we've thought of at UNSILO so far. Some of these things don't include the most recent stuff that I'll get to at the end. Others are things that are deployed, some are things that we're working on, and some of them are just ideas that we did a proof of concept or we have it on the drawing board, but it was never deployed because we didn't find anyone who wanted to pay for that particular use case. So I wouldn't pay too much detail to what it says here, and you'll get the slides afterwards, and then you can sort of review in detail, and you can always ask more questions. But it's just to give you an idea of the depth and the width of potential use and business cases for some of this technology, and also to say that what we're seeing here now is it's constantly evolving. I think if we come back to this, some months from now, maybe a year from now, we'll see that it'll have changed. Maybe there's some other things on this, and maybe some things would have been taken off. A bit here on the underlying approach of how we work. In its essence, working with us, the technology doesn't require any taxonomies or ontologies. It deploys in the cloud, APIs, SaaS. It's very good at extracting precise concepts, and it's very good at establishing the relationships between those concepts and sort of the inherent documents, people, locations that are tagged to those concepts. So how is it done? Well, it looks much more complex if you see sort of a schematic of how it's actually done. But to give you an idea, this is a view of sort of a more traditional taxonomic approach to fingerprinting. So, understanding what's in a piece of context. So traditionally, fingerprinting, linking, searching has been based on fairly rudimentary understanding of text, right? The common automated version of fingerprinting has been to look for words that we know the meaning of and count their frequency, and then use that to make some determinations of what the text is about and how it may relate to other pieces of text, right? And of course, some of the limitations here, are around that you'll primarily find things that you've predefined in your taxonomy. UNSILO takes a slightly different approach. So we analyze thousands or millions of documents. We scale very well, and we figure out dynamically, or the software, our processes figure out dynamically and automatically which phrases are in common use across the corpus. We also understand which phrases approximately mean the same thing, even if they contain different words. And then presently we're part of a research effort to understand the connectivity of these things to build reasoning on top of this structure. And if you want to understand more about this, we'll be happy to get on a separate call or meet with you and sort of show you the many different processes that lie below sort of a colorful slide like this. So let's get to some deployment examples. The various examples I'm going to show you, they're going to cover a number of things, but things you're going to see are about sort of reducing effort, cost, time, finding things, so sort of in the research discovery space, automating or semi-automating evaluation, matching people with content, curating, summarizing or partially summarizing content, indicating trends, patterns in content, and then just generally lifting discovery and search. The first example that I have here is one from Springer Link. And the keywords that you see there are actually top scoring concepts that we have extracted without any use of a taxonomy or an ontology. Our unsupervised approach has gone in, it's analyzed the text of this, in this case, this article and all the other articles in this corpus. And it's surfacing here the top scoring concepts for this article. One of the benefits of this is if you were to use author supplied keywords exclusively, what you'd find is that there's a certain amount of randomness sometimes to author keywords, right? They'll have very different ways of describing things. But the use of this software sort of gets beyond that, helps normalize keywords and organize in a different way. And it responds to what's actually happening in the text versus if you had a predefined taxonomy where you're sort of, retroactively responding to how the field is moving. This defines, keywords based on what is actually in the text, not sort of based on a more like human dependent workflow where it may take a while for taxonomy to become updated, or where you set a cap on how many taxonomic terms you're interested in. Another example here is from a site called Nano. It's an initiative from Springer Nature that they do in collaboration with a number of publishers. I think 26, 27. Here it says 25, but I think it's maybe increased with a couple. So here, UNSILO analyzes the content from those publishers, and we built a custom classifier that's able to identify if content is nanotechnology-ish or not. So we can analyze those publishers' content and then build a custom index that fishes out or extracts the content that's about nanotechnology. Because we have identified the full text of these articles, we also are able to do some cool things about understanding how each article relates to individual user queries. So here it shows in the search bar titanium dioxide. Down here, the software knows through its relationship mapping, of course, that titanium dioxide is synonymous with titanium. And because it's analyzed this article and all the other articles, it also understands that when things like mesoporous titania or surfactant or titanium nanoparticles or benzalkonium chloride show up inside that article, they know that those are concepts that are highly relevant to anyone searching for titanium dioxide and seeing this particular article. So it's sort of a way of building, context sensitive, super brief summaries for subject matter experts that want to be able to see, well, relevant to my search terms, what could possibly be hiding inside this article that I may be interested in without me having to read the full article first or browse through it, or even reading the abstract. I'd recommend you go check out this site, nano.nature.com. Here's something that looks fairly standard, right? It's creating related, and this is for Taylor and Francis. You can say, well, what's so fascinating about this? If you look at many related features around the web, you'll find that some of them are not particularly good at showing precisely related content. Maybe they're based on only a partial understanding of the content. Maybe some of those functionalities, they put aside some real estate on the site and they say, well, no matter what, we're going to populate this with 3 pieces of related content. And then sometimes when you are reading maybe a piece of content on the margins of that corpus, maybe it's going to show content that isn't necessarily super related. Our unsupervised concepts, right? They're all mathematically calculated, and so we're able to set thresholds. We have a very careful understanding of what goes on in the full text, and so when we do relatedness, it tends to be very precise. And you could set scoring thresholds where you say only show something that's related above a certain score. And if it's not above that score, then just don't show it. Don't waste a user's time. And we can do this as any type of content. This is articles for Carga, right? But whether it's chapters, books, journals, articles, abstracts, or people that have been disambiguated but have content related to them. I mean, there's all these relations that can be shown. Another example here is a reviewer finder. It's an API, right? The way this works is that we extract and understand the concepts from across the publication history of disambiguated authors, right? So if you're an author, then we'd go in and we'd identify you as an author, maybe through ORCID ID or maybe by doing some vectoring and a lot of disambiguation. We would create a cumulative fingerprint of your publication history, and we would have a very good understanding of what your interests are. We could also weigh those interests, right? Because maybe the majority of your content, your publications were published 10 years ago on something that used to be a focus of yours, but in the past 3 years, you've changed focus, and we're able to pick up on those signals too. And then we can take your fingerprint and then we can run that against incoming manuscripts and identify if you would be an appropriate reviewer for this incoming manuscript. And we can tell you which concepts that we have found in your history that matched concepts in the manuscript that you're receiving. So you sort of get a validation of, well, why am I being sent this? Or the managing editor could see, why should I send it to this person? Finally here, we also do, we have a tool, a SaaS tool that I'm going to do a demo of just after this, that allows a mix of human and machine skills to build high quality and rapidly updating topic pages and collections. And this was inspired by Carter, who had a very specific use and business case for building and selling collections, but needed a different tool to help them address that opportunity to scale their business. So we built a tool with them over a 3-month period and launched the tool. And I'll give you a demo after this. But so when you look at this, I mean, what are we largely dealing with here? I think we're dealing with much the same as we've been dealing with for a very long time, right? We're filtering information. We're connecting people with the right information at the right time. And I think if we get back to this, I don't know. I don't like predicting the future, right? But I think this is sort of a bit of a perpetual challenge, exponentially growing challenge, right? This is a filtering exercise, a filtering challenge, and I think it will continue to be for a very long time. That's basically what we do, and that's where we're trying to apply our technology. So now I'll just jump into a demo of Classify. Let me show you here. So I said this is a demo version of a tool that we built for and together with Cargo Publishers in Switzerland. They sell collections, custom collections or subscribed collections, and they needed a way of scaling that business effectively, an internal workflow tool, but also a tool that provided them with high quality collections that could be updated dynamically as well. So I'll quickly just show you some underlying principles of building a collection, and then we'll jump into this collection that I've prepared in advance, just to sort of shorten down the amount of time here. This tool definitely speeds up the process, but it still deserves some time to build a proper collection, and it can't be done in 30 seconds. But let me just illustrate here. Let's say if I could type correctly, if I wanted to build something around CRISPR, I'd go in here. The content for this demo version is a subset of content from PubMed Central. I'd add a concept, and as I start typing here, these concepts, if I can type, right, these concepts that are showing up here are concepts that have been fished out automatically from the corpus, and I can pick any one I want, right, and then I can save. See, and of course it doesn't show much because this is a live demo, and in live demos things go wrong. But normally what you would see here is you'd see this histogram where you'd have things that show up over on this side of the spectrum, things that show up here on this side of the spectrum. You would move this around to locate sort of the window of things that you want to inspect for your collection. And then you would go in and you would select, or you would exclude the things that you want for your package. Let me show you here. And within here, you could go in and you could boost or you could suppress concepts. You could add documents if you had a particular document that you want to build a collection around, and the concepts that are feeding that document, you could put it in here, and then you could use that sort of as a kickstarter for building a collection. Well, let me show you. Let's just discard these. Let me show you an existing. Oh my goodness. So of course something has happened here because it's on a demo server from 30 minutes ago when I last looked at this, but I'll power on regardless. So over here you'll see I've built a classifier It includes 15 articles, from which for each article it has a number of top scoring concepts, and it's built a collection around those concepts. I've gone in, I've suppressed and I've boosted some concepts here amongst all the concepts that have been fished out to give it a good idea of what I'm interested in. And then I've spent some time inspecting documents, some that I approve and some that I discard because I'm not interested in them. And while I was doing that, I've adjusted this window of things I'm interested in. As I come back a week from now, a month from now, and I make collections in my inspection window that I can move, I'll start basically building classify, a bit like the nano example that I showed you, where we've built a sort of a standard classifier. You can have a classifier here that integrates sort of human curation skills with machine curation skills. And I could come back a month from now and I could look at it again and see, well, what things do I need to inspect to update my package? I could also, a bit like in the nano example, I could close this loop entirely and say, from now on, anything that comes in on this side is going to auto approve. Anything that comes in on this side is going to auto discard. Over here, I have my approved articles, and I can export them as an XML file. There you go. And I could open up that XML file. Let's see here, right? And there you have it. And it shows basically, titles, abstracts, DOIs, authors, but it could be defined, that export could be defined to anything that you would need if you wanted to integrate it with a CMS system for building like subject pages or particular packages on the web. So I'm sorry, either a dear colleague of mine went in and played around with it, or something is happening on the demo server. So it looks slightly different than it did about 30 minutes ago. But I think you get the principle. And there are some videos available on YouTube from UNSILO product, where you'll be able to see like quick 1-minute how-tos to use Classify. And we're happy to provide you with demo access to this tool if you have a good use case for using this. Let me get back here. Let's look at what's next for us. So now you've gotten like a fairly good view of what we're working on so far, and some various deployments of it. I'd say, I'd have to repeat, we are a solutions provider, right? So we take a lot of pride and effort in listening to particular use and business cases from potential partners, and then figuring out what solutions are to those. And sometimes maybe we'll say, honestly, we can't build that solution, or we'll say that solution would be very expensive to build. And other times we figure out very clever custom approaches. And sometimes we figure out, well, actually, if that's what you want to do, then if you make this change, then there's a standardized approach of achieving what you're looking to achieve. So again, please contact us or Silverchair if you have some particular things that you're interested in addressing, and then we'll have a conversation about it. But what's happening next for UNSILO? Well, we're finding some white space in the entire area of manuscript evaluation workflows, and we think there's something there for advanced text intelligence like ours that can be developed to solve some fairly valuable challenges in this space. So with a couple of exceptions, such as statistical review and plagiarism detection, today most use of technology in this space seems fairly limited to file organization, distributing manuscripts for review, and then various formatting things. So we think there's more that can be done, and we're starting to explore that. And this is just to give you a view of this, right? So if you look out here on the left, this is where many of these technologies have been used first, sort of in research discovery search. But if you start moving to the right here, and mind you, we could call these different steps in a workflow many different things. This is just one way of dividing them, and there are production steps afterwards. If there was a number 7 here, this is just sort of to give you an idea of how we're thinking about potential opportunities in this space. So for instance, here in the right area, right, we think we could use and develop some of our technologies to help sort of analyze if abstracts cover what manuscripts are about, to give some indications of that, evaluate novelty of claims in manuscripts against recent research, identify similar studies that may not have been included or referenced that the author should check out, screen for standard required statements that should be in there, various declarations, disclosures. In the submit and in the initial assessment area, right, we could extract info potentially from manuscripts for submission forms or submission systems, things that authors are typically burdened with to rekey, so information that's already in the manuscript, and then you have to spend time rekeying it into the system, when maybe something intelligent could just extract it and pre-populate those submission pages for you, and then you can go in and double check. We could check for various standard journal guideline requirements, statements, IRBs, consort, competing interest, maybe mentions to things that are missing. Sort of if you think of when you're about to send an email and you say something about an attached document, and the software just flags and says, are you sure? It seems like nothing is attached, things like that. And also match your manuscript against the journal that you're about to submit to. How does it fit the scope of what the journal has published recently? Initial assessment, many of the same things I just mentioned. Review, of course, we have a reviewer finder API, right? So that's a given. But again, looking at novelty of claims and manuscripts, are there statements in here that are saying things that contradict or look very new in comparison to what has been said in previous papers? Identifying similar studies, again, that haven't been referenced by authors. Maybe look at method appropriateness, like looking up methods, finding recent studies that are using the same method. Looking for sort of how things match up, right? Maybe if the conclusion reflects the argument, or to which extent it's supported by data. And in the final one, right, we could do things around evaluating, scoring, correlating reviewer reports. Again, look at novelty claims for the manuscript, help editors assess how this contribution is a fit for the journal, sort of at a concept level, what it's about, how does that fit with the journal? Is this a trending topic, which is maybe something that's interesting once you have a journal where maybe it's a wider journal and you have things that are coming in on the margins and you're trying to make determinations of whether this is a fit or it should go to another journal. Those are some of the things that we think maybe there could be some value that could be provided with our type of technology. Just a few words here on if you want to explore working with us. We take great pride in trying to understand use and business cases of potential partners, and we sort of have a consultative approach to that, where we work with you to really get to the bottom of what is it you would like to solve. And then we often provide POCs. You don't always need a POC. Sometimes maybe an existing deployment is proof enough for you that this thing could work. And sometimes you're doing something very unique, or maybe you have some unique information sets where we then agree, let's try and do a proof of concept. And then we then we figure out, how are we going to set it up, how we're going to measure, evaluate the proof of concept, what are sort of the terms around this proof of concept. Some proof of concepts may be free if they are relying on sort of what we have on the shelves. And some of them, there may be some costs, so they become paid proof of concepts if we have to go out and sort of custom build a proof of concept for you. And that takes me right to the end of these initial slides. I just want to thank again Wes and Silverchair for inviting us to give this brief sort of introduction to UNSILO, and thank you everyone who were able to make it to this webinar, and then open it up for ideas and questions. Wes.
Thank you, Neil. It was very, very informative. A couple questions. How much content do we need in order to engage with UNSILO? Is there a minimum or maximum number of documents?
So it varies. I mean, normally we say for us to build like a good knowledge model, because we build custom knowledge models, right? Our knowledge models are built on the information we receive from every individual partner. So it's not like we pool what we're getting in from all our partners and then we build a big knowledge model. No, we only build knowledge models on your content, and so you have sort of the guarantee that we're not going to go out and generate value for ourselves on your information. We only deliver value on that information back to you. But typically we say we need something in the range of the equivalent of 100,000 full text articles. And a full text articles is typically like 3,000 words. But there are some ways around that depending on the use and business case you have, right? Maybe we're able to train on a publicly available corpus, and then you can get away with less content, right? We have some real-time capabilities there where you could call on a pre-existing index like that with single documents that you have to check for things. So, but typically we say 100,000 documents. However, if you have less, don't be shy, right? Because there's always some ifs here. It depends a lot, and sometimes also depends on what those 100,000 are about, right? If you have 100,000 documents and the topics that they are about are all over the place, then 100,000 may not be enough. However, if you have 50,000 and it's a very tight-knit sort of a domain or subject that they cover, then maybe they may be enough, all depending on what you're looking for. So contact us, and then we'll give you case-by-case feedback on what we think would be required to achieve what you're looking to achieve.
Kind of related to that, what content formats do you work with?
So any text really, right? There may be some extra work involved that there are many different formats, but your standard XML and ISO-JATs and all that stuff we work with, and of course, as part of being a Silverchair Universe partner, I mean, rest assured that if you're on the Silverchair platform, we can work with your content done. We've done some tests sometimes where there's some content that has turned out troublesome, where content providers had like scans of text that were hiding in there, but as image files, and they weren't actually real text files, right? And then you have to do like quality OCR and stuff like that on top. So those are some of the limitations. If you have text in any shape or form that's machine readable, then we can do something with it typically. But again, test us, right? Just come to us if in doubt. Just raise your hand and we'll figure it out.
How does content length affect the quality of the results? For instance, can you work with things that are shorter than even an abstract?
That varies a bit. It depends on what it is you are trying to do. Like, so yeah, we can work with shorter things, right? But let's say you had like, if you had a lot of titles, you just had titles, nothing but titles, right? One, you would need many titles to build a knowledge model around that, because we need a lot of words, right? So that's one thing. But you may be able to do something with those titles if you're running them against an index of that was already of a high quality. Typically, we find that you know, if you want to do something where you're like, I want to create relatedness between documents, and you wanted a solid fingerprint of each document where there were enough concepts that we could extract to sort of give you an idea of what this is about, then abstract level is probably as short as you'd like to go, right? But if you were running titles against a pre-existing index of full text or a very large index of titles, there's nothing that prevents us from saying, oh, this title is related to these existing titles or these documents. So again, it varies a lot on what you're trying to achieve, and we're very acutely aware of figuring that out first, and then we figure out what is the best build around this, or can we build it, and then we'll tell you what's viable or not. And we try to come up with solutions that make it work for you.
Just two more questions. One,
yeah.
For publishers that are on the Silverchair platform, how does that integration work? What does Silverchair have to provide to UNSILO?
Well, so I mean, so as part of being a Silverchair Universe partner, right? And Wes, you correct me if I'm wrong, right? We've already had conversations with Silverchair to sort of validate and verify that our systems will be able to speak with each other, right? And that the formats work. So you shouldn't have to worry about that. That's a unique benefit of the UNSILO Silverchair relationship. If you wanted to do some integration, of course, of these APIs, then then it requires a conversation with us and with Silverchair, right? But Silverchair would have to look at what you're trying to integrate into the platform and how that API works with their platform. So it would quickly become a three-party conversation. And I guess the approach could be, you could go to your Silverchair account manager and say, oh, I'm interested in this. Can we have a conversation with you, or can we have a conversation with UNSILO and you together? Or you could come to us first and you could say, this is what we're thinking about, just overall, you know, how could this work? And then we could say, this is how it could work. And then if you're interested in that, then, you know, you could go to Silverchair. We could all go to Silverchair and then open up the conversation there. I don't think there's any sort of, you know, definite way of doing it. Other than I think we in Silverchair are completely open to exploring new things constantly. So just you know, let us know, and we figure it out. This is what we do for a living. We figure out these things. So yeah, I guess that's a long-winded answer of saying just contact us. We'll talk about it.
And then last question: what is your pricing model?
So the pricing model, it varies a bit. We operate on a per document pricing, and that can vary a bit on the average length of your document types, right? So if we needed to do something with content and it was only abstracts, then we'd come up with, because it's really just about processing, right? Then we'd come up with a per abstract price for that. And if it was a full text article, a different pricing. And if it was a book and we established what the average book length was or chapter length, then it would, you know, so we would do it like that. And that would be for sort of the core extraction, right? This ability to go in and do the analysis unsupervised without taxonomies, establish what concepts and phrases and terms are actually in my content. Then, of course, you would want to have something on top of that, maybe, right? Maybe you want classify, maybe you want a related API, maybe you want a reviewer finder API. For those sort of solutions sitting on top of that baseline, there would again be another sort of per object or per document pricing. And again, it would vary a bit. There are some partners where, where they have many documents, right? Like millions of documents. So we come up with a pricing structure for that. And then there are some clients that have, few documents, enough that we can build a custom knowledge model, but maybe slightly less than we would normally price for. But we also come up with pricing models for that. And then finally, these things are invoiced on an annual basis, or the pricing is annual. They can be invoiced quarterly, every half year. We come up with models for that. And then we give some discounts for multi-year agreements, right? So if you are willing to commit for a 3 or 5 year agreement, then we can give you some incentive pricing, volume discounting for a longer relationship with us.
Very good. Neil, do you have any closing comments you want to provide?
No, just nothing else but repeating thank you, Wes, and thank you, Silverchair, and thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And to everyone on the call, if you have an idea, just please contact us. Here's my details and Michael's. We're always interested in a chat, even if it's just pure ideation. We're always interested in maybe doing a proof of concept. There's no commitment that if you have to do a commercial agreement with us afterwards. I think we and everyone in this field, we're sort of continuous learners, right? And the only way that you, everyone here is going to learn from this and progress with our use of this technology is by having conversations, right? And sometimes the best ideas are the ones that just may seem the most outrageous and the most crazy to begin with. And then after a while, you may find that idea wasn't that crazy, and maybe it normalizes, like I said in the beginning. And maybe it turns out to be the best thing since sliced bread. So so please contact us if you just want to throw some stuff against the wall, and also contact us if you have some very defined requirements.
Great. And if anyone has any questions about how UNSILO fits into Silverchair Universe, feel free to reach out to your product delivery manager here at Silverchair, and they will get you the information that you need, and reach out to me or to Neil for any additional questions you have. Hope everyone has a great rest of the day. Hope to see you in the future on another Silverchair Universe webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.